and welcome to Unscripted Leadership. I am your host, Heather Orrico, Vice President, Comcast Business. Unscripted Leadership focuses on Comcast Business's role in the tech industry and how it serves its clients. The podcast highlights executives' challenges in their respective industries and how technology is allowing better efficiencies and productivity. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast sites, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. For our episode today, I have the privilege of talking with Lee Parrish, Chief Information Security Officer for Newell Brands. Welcome, Lee, to Unscripted Leadership.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We are so glad to have you. And Lee, there's so much that I can't wait for you to share with our audience today in terms of your background, both personal and professional. And I really want to first start today by saying thank you for your service in the United States Marine Corps. Can you take us on a walk with you through that journey and including this foundation of service and how that shaped the person and leader you are today?
Sure. Yeah, I started in the Marine Corps in the late 80s. And before I went into the Marine Corps, I realized that I wanted to be an executive in a corporation somewhere. So I wasn't looking to do a career in the military. I was going in for a sense of service, but also to garner some funding for college and things like that. So I enlisted in the Marine Corps, had an excellent 4 years. I started off in security forces, which I lived in Sicily for 2 years, which was amazing. And I got to travel all over Europe and see all different kinds of cultures and things like that. I was in security forces there in Sicily, and we guarded nuclear weapons and things like that. I also served as a driver and a bodyguard for high-ranking VIP guests and things like that that came to our base. After 2 years, I moved into the infantry, which was 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, as a forward observer. And basically what that is calling in fire missions from artillery, mortars, naval gunfire, jets, things like that. And we would use maps and other tools to develop coordinates to put bombs on target. And shortly after I made the move to 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, Operation Desert Shield started, and then subsequently Operation Desert Storm. And so I was deployed during both of those engagements and was there in country for 6 months and fought in Desert Storm. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps, right before I got out, I was made an instructor over other Marines to show them how to be a forward observer, and was given an honorable discharge and left the Marine Corps after 4 great years. So it was amazing. I got to jump out of planes. I got to travel the world and do all kinds of things. So that was an amazing experience. And then when I started my college, my undergraduate degree, I was an adult student. And so I declared philosophy as my major, which I'm sure guaranteed me a good job after college. And worked as a correctional officer at a prison during the night. So from 6 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, I worked as a correctional officer. And then I would catch a couple hours sleep and then go to school in the morning and then do it all over again. So it was a very difficult 3 years. I mean, there was not a lot of sleep and it was a lot of sacrifice. But I graduated and began work at a global data management firm in Arkansas, and in the strategic alliance division. So we were working with other companies and forming strategic alliances to co-market our services and our products. And then after doing that for a little bit of time, I started and finished an MBA degree and made a transition. This is early 2000, made a transition into information security for that same company and doing things like policy and governance and stuff like that. And then ultimately was promoted to the leader of the information security team for the corporation. After a few years of doing that, I was recruited for a CISO position for a shipbuilding sector for an aerospace and defense company. At the same time, I also graduated with a Master's of Science degree in information security. My wife caught me looking at a doctorate brochure and told me I'd be a single Dr. Parrish. So that ended my academic career. But it was a great opportunity, so I grabbed a hold of it and did very, very well in that company. I learned so much, and then was able to be promoted to an enterprise information security officer, where my role was charged with centralizing 9 disparate information security programs into one holistic program. And since then, I've been serving as a CISO for Fortune 500 companies in manufacturing, financial services, retail, and consumer products. Today, as you mentioned, I'm the CISO at Newell Brands. We're famous for brands like Rubbermaid and Coleman, Sharpie, Graco, Yankee Candle, and many others. Some of the key moments that helped me from my career has been very early on in my career. I realized the importance of education. So that was a key component to what I feel is a contributor to my success. Is I was able to do a lot of education and continuously learn even while working, because I was able to apply the education to what I was doing at work. So that really helped out a lot. I started as an adult student because of my tour of duty in the Marine Corps. So I was much older than most college kids whenever I was going. And so I had to sacrifice a lot. I had to, work during the day, go to school at night, things like that. So I missed a lot of vacations with my family. And there was a lot of sacrifices that not only I made, but my family made as well. So having a strong sense of support, a support structure at home was important for me as well. And then lastly, I'll mention when I began in the industry, the cybersecurity industry, it was primarily a technical function, the CISO role. It was led by very technical visionaries who usually reported to another technology executive like a CIO or someone like that, who translated the security risks into business terms. And I saw very early on that if this role was going to be successful, it must maintain its technical underpinnings, but at the same time, we should deeply incorporate business concepts into what we do. And so I published my first article on this idea. I guess it's been about 20 years now. And now, after many more published articles and a couple books, I believe that now more than ever, if we're going to be successful as security executives, we have to integrate business into what we do.
You said a lot throughout, and I have a few follow-up questions, Lee. The
Sure,
first
sure.
one is, do you sleep?
I do now, but yeah, back then I was a walking zombie. It was pretty bad.
You layered in several times there sacrifice, the word sacrifice. I don't know if you realized you said that, but as you were doing that and, taking time away from your family in those moments, can you share with us what was driving you?
It was that goal that I had in my mind ever since I was young, that I wanted to be an executive of a company. And what form that took, I didn't know at the time. And it's changed over the years early on in my career. But, the path to get there has changed. But the goal has always been very firmly embedded in my mind. And it was something that I knew if I were able to achieve that, it would mean success, not only for me, but for my family, and to be able to have really a comfortable lifestyle for us, to be able to go on vacations and things like that. So that was the driving force.
That's amazing. You did more than that goal, that mission, that vision kept you on a path and ended up ultimately, it sounds like doing more than you even originally thought that you were going to do. And so that kind of leads me to my next one, which is, as a veteran, as an author, speaker, leader of various Fortune 500 companies, and there's so few people that can say that. How has that experience influenced your strategy to help Newell build strong teams?
Well, for me, it started with the Marine Corps, and in every role I've held since as a CISO. My experience has taught me that the most critical element of an information security, or really any field, is the importance of team building and supporting the employees who all work so hard to advance the program. I've said this many times, and I'll repeat it here, is as a CISO, I have the same access to security technologies as other CISOs. The vendors aren't selling to some of us and not all of us. We all have the same access to that technology. And it's the same for processes. We can leverage frameworks and policy templates and industry research to build our strategy. So again, we're on the same level playing field as CISOs. The true differentiator then in building an effective program lies in its people. That's the secret sauce. The people are what distinguish a good security program from a great one. And as a result, over the years, that's been my main focus is, how can I better serve the people within my organization and across Newell and as well as the industry? How can I serve them better? That's what drives me. Everything I do is self-measured against that simple question. And we have a phenomenal IT coaching program at Newell where employees are matched up with leaders for regular discussions and mentoring and things like that. I've been part of that program for each of the 3 years I've been at Newell. And to be honest, I think I learned more from the employees that I coach than they probably learned from me. For non-IT employees, it's the same thing. We want to invest our time in those folks too. So we've initiated an open house program where we fling open the doors of our security program, and everyday employees who work in finance or sales or manufacturing or something like that can come in and look and see what we do from an information security perspective. It's that transparency that we're looking for. And lastly, we have a very strong succession planning program at Newell, and that's how we develop our next future leaders. And so for me, it's all about the people, and that's what's influenced my strategy the most.
That is wonderful to hear about Newell and about your leadership. So when you're thinking about the coaching program and when you're thinking about a lot of the philosophy and the way you lead, what are those key leader competencies that bubble up that you see are part of, high performing individuals, Lee?
I think it's just a matter of keeping the employee at the forefront of your thoughts. So, for instance, like when you're building a security service catalog, for instance, there are some things that you may want to outsource to a third party. Maybe it's a managed security service provider to provide monitoring and things like that. And they can leverage economies of scale and things like that to provide a service that's a relatively lower cost than it would take for me to build that internally. But at the same time, there might be other types of services that I would want to bring in-house. And that might be, for instance, a forensic capability to be able to do a forensic image of a computer and be able to study that. If I were to outsource that today, I could expect to pay anywhere from $300 to $700 an hour for a third party, where I can do it for $100 fully burdened internal security labor with some technology spend and a little bit of training. But I also think about the people aspect of it. It's like, what do my employees want to do? They want to do challenging work. That's why they got into the field. They don't want to look at a monitor all day and look at alerts. They want to do exciting work. So that very much plays into the strategy that I have is what is going to drive my employees, keep them engaged, and keep them happy. And then along the way, we like to have fun too. That's important too. What we do is so serious. If you're not having fun and you don't feel like you're contributing, what's the point?
That's right. You're literally fighting the bad guys every day, right? And so you have to mix the fun in there. And I tell you, I wrote down the notes on the open house. I am going to steal that idea for my organization. I love that. I think we need more of that cross collaboration, but even moreover, just opening the doors to say, come on in, take a look. What ideas do you have outside of your realm here? Make others part of those directions for your org. I love that. Let's pivot to some more technology. Can you talk about adaptive security and how critical it's become for organizations to adjust their security models to evolve with the pace of techniques used by threat actors?
Yeah, absolutely. It's super critical that we align our security models to be dynamic in nature. I mean, we have to be able to address not only the changing or evolving attack techniques from our adversaries, but also changes in our internal business. Our business strategies change. We do reorganizations as companies. We do reorganizations and look to see what we can do to enhance top line revenue growth and bottom line efficiency. So the business is changing and evolving all the time, and we have to evolve with it. What we do is we establish baselines and look for anomalies, leveraging a lot of different tools, machine learning, AI, threat hunting. We do continuous pen testing and other services that help us to identify when those processes exceed those baselines. We use security orchestration and automation as well. There's a lot of advanced technology out there, but one of the things I like to think about is we should not lose sight of the basic blocking and tackling work that's so important to what we do. So a couple quick examples. One is we should continue to develop our core vulnerability management and patching and fixing practices to address the open doors and windows that we have in our environments. I think a lot of times movies will show hackers doing super, advanced techniques and things like that to break into networks. And it's true, but the reality is that they start with the open doors and the windows. If there's an unpatched system, that's their entry point. They're not going to leverage their custom code or their advanced technologies to break into a company if something's gone unpatched and they can just go in that way. That's what our adversaries do, and I think that's what we should do as security professionals. Start with the foundational stuff. The other thing I would mention is to focus on the behavior and not so much the technology. And I know that's a little strange coming from a technology executive, but a good example of this is many years ago, I worked at a company and we developed a policy that said there are no cameras allowed in our data center. We had our own data center. It was actually quite a really, really good one. And so we didn't want any kind of cameras in the data center. And then camcorders started getting smaller. Instead of having the ones that went over your shoulder and stuff like that, they started getting smaller. So we said, okay, so we changed the policy, no cameras and no camcorders. And then phones started coming out with camera capability. Okay, so no cameras, no camcorders, and no phones are allowed in the data center. So what you see what we did, we focused on the technology rather than the behavior we were trying to prevent, and that was no pictures in the data center. So I think if we get back to the basics sometimes, I think that helps out a lot.
It's interesting when we're working with enterprise corporations, when we're working with government and education entities, that's what we start with is kind of the foundations. What are we building on? If it's smart lighting, what can we leverage this foundation for to, kind of preempt other behavior, to your point. So I love the way you said that. I also heard you now twice talk about we started with tech, but we really, and you as a CISO and tech leader have been at the forefront of, we have to layer in the business concepts, the plan of record for the business where we're headed to really enable technology, empower our people, but moreover also inform our strategy.
Absolutely, especially when it comes to special events like I've experienced over my career, acquisitions, divestitures, bankruptcies, things like that. Those affect your information security program, and you have to keep pace of it.
We hear a lot these days about digital trust, and I would love for you to share with everyone why digital trust matters and the role that really comprehensive cybersecurity can play for Newell Brands.
Sure. Obviously, cybersecurity is one of the cornerstones in digital trust, and it's something that we take very seriously at Newell Brands. It's a frequent topic. We discuss it at all levels, through our product teams, our system administrators, to the executive leadership team, and even the board of directors and the audit committee within the board of directors. So there's a lot of curiosity around the topic at Newell, and the support has been phenomenal. That's another important aspect to any security strategy. If you don't have that level of support from the top down, the game is over. It's just not going to work. And so I'm very blessed in the fact that I do indeed have that support. And while compliance is critically important, our security conversations aren't just about meeting regulatory requirements. It's often focused on protecting our information as well as the quality of that information. We make decisions, business decisions based off of data. So we have to make sure that data is accurate and that it's internally and externally consistent. And at Newell, we have a very robust data management team within IT. All of our operating segments and functional areas, we leverage data to enhance those programs as well. So our cybersecurity team, we work to address the protection and the privacy of the data along with our legal team. So it's a very comprehensive view or maybe a life cycle of digital trust that we practice. A good example of this is AI. We started on our AI journey from a cybersecurity perspective a few years ago when I first started at Newell. And we formed this small committee with myself and information security and legal, IT, and our internal audit. And we started talking about AI and how it was blowing up and getting really big. And we started developing policies around that and started creating processes for how we're going to think about AI and the use of AI specifically at Newell. And so I think we did a really good job of laying the foundation. And since then, we've done a lot of work to look at the security of those AI solutions. And we don't stop at security. Our legal team, they look at the use cases for AI to make sure that what's being proposed are, it ensures the privacy of the data, the fairness of the data, as well as examining the legal aspects of its use. And then our executive team, we actually have an AI committee on our executive team. The CEO himself sits on that committee, and they're looking at all of the AI proposals, and they're approving those that are going to materially impact our profitable top line revenue growth or enhance our bottom line efficiency. So it's much more than just cybersecurity. It's a whole company and multi-departmental type of initiative that makes it successful. So it isn't just about security.
One of the things we layer into our conversations in Comcast Business is how are we mitigating risk for our customers or helping them drive revenue, which is where you just landed the plane. But you have this theme through our talk today that is about bringing your partners with you. And I think it's a really great best practice that you just shared. And so I want to repeat it on the make sure that you're educating in your security teams everybody who's outside the security team to bring them on the journey with you and create that awareness.
Yeah, it is a team sport. It really is.
Well, hey, Atlanta has become this important hub for the tech sector. You, throughout your career, have always been at the forefront of new technologies. So I'd love for you to share with us the trends that you're most excited about next for 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, I even before I moved to Atlanta, I knew that was 3 years ago. I knew that Atlanta had a very powerful position in the tech industry. There's many large corporations here, obviously, film and television studios, which obviously leverage technology. We have really high quality colleges and universities, and it's a great transportation hub. So Atlanta being a technology hub is no surprise to me whatsoever. There's also some charitable organizations providing programs in Atlanta for job training and technology, and that helps to seed the next generation of technology professionals. For me personally, I'm excited about the sense of community we have here, specifically in the cybersecurity space. There's always some sort of event or gathering for security practitioners and also for CISOs to get together and share ideas and best practices. Everyone is really willing to contribute, and so it's been really, really good. Some of the emerging trends I'm most excited about are obviously AI, automation, cloud, things like that. So it's a great place to be if you're interested in technology. And some of the other companies I've worked for and other places I've lived, I've had to travel to some place to go to a technology hub, and here it's in my own backyard. So the sense of community is what I'm most excited about.
It's great. There's such great thought leadership in that community, as you said. I think the business development community in and around the city does a great job of bringing people in and around the table too. So great points. So Lee, one of the primary reasons I developed this podcast was to what I call feed forward to those coming up in their career and help them elevate their thinking to achieve more. What is one piece of advice you would give to aspiring tech leaders?
Can I get extra credit if I do two of them?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I would remind anyone who's aspiring to be a tech leader to remind them that technology is an enabler of business. And while they continue to learn as much as they can about technology and practice new skills in the technical space, don't forget about the core domains that the technology enables. So I would suggest exploring topics like finance and strategy and supply chain and sales and product development, manufacturing. The list goes on and on. But those things that make up the business in order to provide products and services to the customer, you'll need a deep understanding and a knowledge of these domains, and not just a glancing understanding of finance, but to be successful as a tech leader, you really do need to understand it. Not be an expert in it, but you do need to understand it quite significantly. I would also double down on the leadership aspects of a role, and realizing that the achievements that you have garnered over the years that put you in the leadership role are not going to keep you in the leadership role. It's a completely different role. You're now responsible for how you support your team and keep them engaged, and how you accomplish things through others and serve as an example for others. And so it's a unique skill. It's something that I would say leadership is one of the things that aspiring tech person should really double down on. And then lastly, I'll just pass on something a mentor of mine told me. This was 25, 30 years ago. He told me, he said, if you aspire to be in a role someday, act like you're already in that role today. And that advice, more than any other, has served me very well over the years. If you want to be in a role, act like you're already in that role. And so I would suggest that.
I have 3 great takeaways from your response. One is tech enables business. And so don't just sit with someone, sit in their chair, right? Go sit in a finance chair, put a finance hat on, talk about strategy, work on supply chain, etc. Great takeaway. 2 is continue to evolve and grow in leadership. This is about getting work done through others, with others, and continuing to feed yourself, right? Because it is an ongoing growth item for a really strong leader. And then 3 was act as if. Whatever you want for the next thing, show up like it every day. What great feedback from you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Lee, it's been my honor to sit with you today and for our audience to hear your insights. Thank you for spending the time with us.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
For our listeners out there, Comcast Business offers Ethernet solutions, dedicated internet, Wi-Fi, mobile, voice solutions, and managed enterprise and security solutions to help organizations of all sizes transform their business. Talk to us today to find out how we can help your business grow and thrive. You can find the Unscripted Leadership podcast published monthly, so we hope you will continue to tune in with us next month and in the future. Thank you all for joining us today.